Tell me about some of the issues that your opponent especially has fixated on, and other opponents. There's a website, I don't know if you're aware of this, that called the both of you too kooky for Kentucky. Okay, and so welcome to Kentucky. But some of the views are, for instance, let me ask both of you your views. Is America responsible? You think is it America's fault that 9/11 happened?
No, not they're not at fault. They didn't get blamed. But I have talked a lot about this. That America's you and me, and you and I aren't at fault. But policies have consequences. Ideas have consequences. It's sort of like saying that the people are at fault because they allow their government to spend too much. Well, the policies are bad, and I do challenge the policies overseas, and I think they do have consequences, but that's a lot different than blaming America.
But America, as far as an institution, as a government, do you think that the American government then is in part responsible for 9/11?
For a long time, I think we've gotten, off base on it. Just the same as I talk about monetary policy a lot. Started in 1913. I talk about tax policy. Started back then. Foreign policy shifted. So I like to talk about thinking about what the old right used to talk about in foreign policy, and that is sort of what George Bush talked about in the year 2000 when he was running. He said, he says maybe we shouldn't be doing all this nation building and playing policeman of the world, as he was criticizing Clinton. And I just stay consistent to that message, and I think the American people like that message.
How much like your father are you in that position on 9/11?
What I would say is that the most important thing you say from the beginning is if someone murders your family, it's their fault. You know what I mean? We say these people attacked us, and we say it is their fault. Now, there are other questions you can ask about it. Did they murder your family because you left your house unlocked? So, there are ways of looking at it, and you need to look at the big picture, and the big picture includes foreign policy. I think there's a danger sometimes, and where people misinterpret my father, I think, is that they think somehow it is blaming America, and it's not. We are not to blame for people attacking us. It is their fault, and they did something horrendous, and that's how the conversation needs to begin. But then we say, why in the global scheme of things are these happening? And the interesting thing is that, many people say we don't look at this. In Saudi Arabia, we had bases, and we no longer have bases. Osama bin Laden wanted us to leave Saudi Arabia. Did we appease him? Well, it was the George Bush administration that left Saudi Arabia. Maybe it was time that we left Saudi Arabia, but do we do that because we were attacked? Then it's you're appeasing terrorists, which we don't want to ever do. But at the same time, do we want to have bases in Saudi Arabia? We've chosen now not to. We no longer have bases there, and we've gone to a friendlier country. And then there are questions we have. The questions we have are we everywhere all the time to everyone, or are we nowhere and always here at home? And maybe we've gone too far in one extreme that we're everywhere all of the time. And so I think we do need to be concerned with our borders, for example, with national security. I talk a lot about the fact that 16 of the 19 hijackers came here on legal visas. 10 years later, the underwear bomber comes here on a legal visa. One-way ticket, no baggage, paid for with cash. His dad turned him in, and we still have no security in our country. We've spent hundreds of billions of dollars, and they can't stop a guy that has every red flag possible. So we do have to defend ourselves against these people, and having different foreign policy doesn't stop all of that. We do have to defend ourselves.
What would you change about our foreign policies to discourage another 9/11 from happening?
Right. I would end all travel visas to terrorist nations right now and stop them until we have a better idea and understanding of how to regulate and police our own visa system. So I would stop them. I'd put a moratorium. In that same vein, I would also introduce